Yeah, it's looking good.
Yep,
There
we can see
go.
it.
Awesome. So, hello guys, and welcome to the session, The Death of Your Classic Blog by Using GitHub Pages. And as Barbara already said, it is a bit of a pretentious title, but bear with us and everything will start to make sense in the end, I promise. So before we start, I wanted to tell you guys one of my favorite quotes by one of my favorite writers, Robert Heinlein. And if you don't know Robert Heinlein is a very famous American science fiction writer, and he was most well known for writing the book Starship Troopers. And yes, guys, for those of you who don't know, Starship Troopers was a book way before it was made into a movie. And it is one of my favorite sci-fi books as it happens. So the quote goes a little like this. Progress isn't made by the early risers. It is instead made by lazy men trying to find easier ways to do something. And I love that quote. It's my absolute favorite. So what does it have to do with this session? Well, for this session, Ryan and I decided to do things a little bit different than usual. Because usually when we do a session, we rehearse the shit out of it until we got it perfect. This time, because we both are a little bit on the lazy side, we decided to do it a little bit different, a little bit more organic, if you will, and less scripted.
We hope so, at least.
I'm sorry?
We hope so, at least.
Yeah, we hope so, at
Organic,
least.
yeah.
So that also means that we would have like to have this session as interactive as possible. So if you have any question, please use the raise hand function in Teams in order to get our attention. And if that doesn't work, you have my permission to verbally interrupt us as well. Ryan, you actually wanted to start with an apology, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So if you're a little bit like me, you probably may get inspired by this session, and maybe you will end up losing a lot of hours trying to convert your own blog towards GitHub Pages. And I'm sorry for that, but I hope this presentation will help you a little bit in fast in the process. But let's get started. Let's first start with the introduction.
Yeah. So my name is Eltjo van Gulik, and here with me I got my partner in crime, my good friend and my colleague, all in one, Ryan Ververs Bijkerk. We're also joined by one of my childhood heroes, Han Solo. So Ryan and I actually both work at Rawworks. I am the principal consultant for the workspace domain, and Ryan is, as fancy as they call it, the technology evangelist, right?
Yeah. So I'm responsible for the code part within Rawworks. So everything that we do with the code, I'm involved in that, and I also help customers transition towards a more DevOps approach in a traditional workspace environment.
Interesting. So the picture you see here actually is how we, the both of us, spent last Valentine's Day in a hotel room together.
Well, 1 year ago.
1 year ago. No, okay, that was a joke. This was actually an event in, what was it? Was it Berlin or was it Munich? It was in Germany, right?
Yeah, Germany, Munich.
It was in Germany. Yeah. And for the record, we did have separate bedrooms at that session. So
luckily
don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Also, don't worry, because things are starting to get way more serious after this, I promise. So Ryan and I are also very involved in the community platform called GoEUC. Well, we have some more on that later. But without further ado, let's dive right into tonight's topic: why your classic blog is dead. So, as I mentioned before, we're both from GoEUC, and GoEUC is a community non-profit platform where we mainly do EUC-related performance and scalability testing and researches. So what does it have to do with the DDOG, you might ask? Well, Ryan and I present at a lot of events just like this. Normally, these events are a little bit more focused towards EUC-related topics, but our primary delivery method for our researches and our knowledge is on our website. And I'm going to try to say it in English, www.go-euc.com. Try saying that 3 times fast, by the way. Okay, so our site used to be hosted on WordPress. So can I have a small show of hands virtually? How many of you have your own personal website or blog that you use? There we go. Lots of people. Very good. Anyone using WordPress or using something else as the website or the CMS? Yeah, there you go. So
yeah, nice.
WordPress, yes.
Yeah, so WordPress is very, very much used in the community. But we were starting to have some issues with WordPress, and some of these issues you might recognize as well. So over time, it was our understanding and our experience that WordPress websites seems to get sluggish and slow. And we noticed that on our own website, and people also started to comment on that. And the sluggishness could have been caused by several different reasons, right? It could be the web hoster, it could be the theme that we use, or the abundance of plugins that were installed. But the bottom line was, it was getting slow. Secondly, Ryan and I are not website admins, and we have no aspiration to be website admins. But it took us a lot of time to manage WordPress on a day-to-day basis. Which was really starting to get frustrating. I mean, every other day there would be a plugin that needed updating or a theme that had a new update.
I think the most annoying thing when you try to update a plugin and your entire sites will crash, then you're screwed, and then you're losing a couple hours restoring your entire site. So it's a big hassle.
Yeah, at least it was for us. So another issue that we had with WordPress was around security. Because if you don't maintain your WordPress blog currently and keep it updated, there are a lot of vulnerabilities that can be exploited by malicious actors. So another issue we had with WordPress was security. Again? Yeah, again. Because not only WordPress can have lots of exploitable vulnerabilities, but also its plugin ecosystem is very prone to security incidents. And one of the last reasons we felt we needed to move away from WordPress, again, had to do with security. Yeah, again, yes, this time in regards to the themes. So did you know that according to the website wscan.com, there are currently almost 22,000 known WordPress vulnerabilities? Yeah, so security was a big reason for us to move away from WordPress. The last reason why we moved away from WordPress, and I think I mentioned that, because at Go you see we are a non-profit organization and we're being Dutch, so we're being very frugal. So cost was also one of the big drivers for us to move to another alternative. Speaking of alternative, that brings us to the main reason why you guys are probably watching this session now, GitHub Pages.
Yeah, so
that was your cue, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you, like you. Now, so GitHub Pages is a nice alternative to host your website. I actually came to notice to GitHub Pages through two channels, and one was an MVP Reconnect session that was given, a little bit similar like this, that somebody shared how he transitioned his website towards GitHub Pages. And I also noticed that a couple other bloggers within the community already moved towards GitHub Pages. Now, a thing that I didn't know is that GitHub Pages is, I think, since the beginning already available in GitHub.
Yes, so, since 2008 we read.
Yeah, so it's there for a long time, and I didn't notice it until I think it was like last year. There are huge amounts of positive things about GitHub Pages, and one, for instance, is the distributed way how the GitHub pages are organized. As the entire website is leaning on GitHub, it's also using the GitHub infrastructure to ensure that the site is delivered towards the locals, the nearest source. So this will result in a fast experience, and you can do great things about it with it. Now,
yeah, that's one of the main advantages why we chose GitHub Pages to move a website to. Plus, of course, it's free, and as I said, we're Dutch and we're frugal, so that's always a plus. It's open source, and that really aligns with our community-focused mindset. And I know, WordPress was open source as well, but the main reason why we switched is because it is fast, very fast. So at Go, you see, we are all about data and performance. So just don't take our word on it that GitHub is faster. We also put that to the test. And for that, I wrote a very rudimentary test with Python and Selenium. And I got the source up on GitHub if anyone is interested, but it's very, very ugly code, so be warned. What this does, we got two websites. Left is a website running GitHub Pages, and right is the same page that was hosted by WordPress hosting.
Now there's multiple factors taken into account. You have the hoster, but you also have the WordPress team. And in this case, the team that is selected for this community site, it's horrible, as you can see. I think the page is already like 5 times loaded on the left side, which is the GitHub Pages one. compared to the one time on the right side. So I can
yeah, what we did actually, here we started it 5 times, but for my test and my data, I actually run that code 100 times. And I calculated the averages, and I got some interesting numbers back. So, as Ryan was said, yes, the old side is very slow, and it is actually 600% slower than the GitHub Pages alternative. 600%. I mean, that's massive, right? That's a huge improvement in my book. So now that we got that out of the way, let's dive some more into the details of GitHub Pages here. So in order to set up GitHub Pages, the theory is actually pretty simple and straightforward. What do you have to do? 1, you have to create a repo. 2, you have to clone the repo to your PC. 3, you can create an index.html and fill it. And 4, you can commit, push the changes, and there you go. You got your website up and running. So Ryan, can you show us how that works in practice?
Okay, there we go. This is gonna be the live demo. So I'm the dark mode user.
I'm gonna time you, right?
Okay. So at first I already prepared. We're gonna create a repository. So I'm gonna create one. Now I do have doing it a little bit slightly differently compared to the example, because I'm doing it in a separate repository instead of your own name. Now in this case, I'm going to create an index HTML. I'm going to provide a hello DDOG. In it. Now usually it's already live, but because we're running in a separate repository, I have to switch it towards the GitHub Pages, and this can be done in the settings. So if you go to the settings, you have a section right here, the GitHub Pages. You can select the branch, save it, and at this point, it's GitHub action will be running, and the site is gonna be published. Now this is gonna take a couple seconds. And eventually it will be green.
I don't know if you can see that, but I timed it, and it is little over 1 minute time that took to set you up, Ryan.
And this is a little bit depending on the actions, of course. And there we go. It's published. Come on. And it should be there.
That's always the thing with live demos, right?
Yeah.
This worked flawlessly when we tried this out just the other day.
This is so anticlimax. And usually you get ta-da, you have something.
Yeah, there's usually some lag when it shows, but normally it should show up within a couple of seconds anyway.
Let me try one more thing. Nope, it's not doing it. Okay. So you have to assume that once you have something in there, it will eventually it will work.
Yeah. Oh man, you completely ruined my next joke, Ryan, because I wanted to say, so what you now get is very anticlimactic because you only see a site that just says "Hello World." It's not really world changing. Oh, man, you really screwed me over this time, man.
It's quite annoying, but let's continue. So imagine you have like a plain text website. So it's gonna be empty because it's a single HTML file just saying hello DDOG, and there's nothing there. So the next step would be, how can you beautify it? Because you cannot make a blog just using a plain text HTML. Now, on the back end, the GitHub Pages are using Jekyll. And Jekyll is a static HTML generator engine that is have the smart or the possibility to generate the entire site. Now, in order to get up and running with Jekyll, they say it's very easy. A couple steps. I'm not going to show it because probably it will break again. But there's a lot of resources out there. So an important thing when you're going to start with Jekyll, there's some documentation here to get it started. I'm a Windows user. I'm not sure about you guys, but there are some installation steps in there for various operating systems. Now, in order to get it up and running on Windows, you need to leverage the Linux subsystem in Windows. But yeah, it's quite easy to get it up and running. You'll eventually run a couple of commands, and at the end, you will have a terminal where you can run the website itself. And so this way, you have the possibility to develop the site locally before pushing it towards towards your GitHub account. Now, you're still having a plain website, so they do have some resources available, including themes. Now, I have to mention that there are a couple themes out there, but it's not like the big catalog WordPress has, unfortunately. So we prepared a demo also for this, if it's gonna work, hopefully.
What's happening with your internet connection, Ryan?
Yeah, I have no clue. Let's switch to this one. I thought it was. There we go.
There we go.
So this is one of the main resources that at least we use for multiple sites. So I created the TMRGE site, but also the GoUC and my own blog. And you can select multiple themes. So there are paid themes and free themes available right here.
Yeah, just like with WordPress.
Exactly. So you can just select one, and in this case, we had one prepared that worked in a demo, but eventually we'll see it not going to work. But in this case, we're going to select this one, and you will see a link towards the GitHub. And at this point, it's quite simple because you can just fork it towards your own account. And there we go. And then you're up and running. Now, in this case, I want to adjust a couple of things. Because Jekyll is using configuration file, you can or you have to adjust a couple of things here. Now, it's important to understand there are a lot of possibilities with the configuration file. But in this case, when you just get started, you need to make sure you include your base path. And the base path is the path that is going to be used for the repository name, which is added to the URL. Update for demo. So I'm just going to commit it into the master. In this case, I want to switch it to the DDOG block. And I want to make one single adjustment to make sure to switch it to the master, because
one remark here where in the screen where Ryan was, this is also where you can enable HTTPS and link a custom domain name if you have that, for example ddog.nl, to your GitHub Pages page.
Now, in order to do that, there's a couple of things you need to take into account. Of course, when adjusting DNS records, you need to take into account that it's going to take some time to change everything. But it's relatively simple in order to update this. So you have a couple options here. You can have a root in there. So just www.ddog.com, for example, or you can create a subdomain for it. Now, in order to move it towards your GitHub page, you need to make sure on your DNS provider to add a couple records. The first one is you need a CNAME, and it should be here somewhere. Where was it? It was here. CNAME, and it's going to be your username.github.io. So there's a one CNAME record that you need to create, and next to that you need to create a couple A records, which is the GitHub service. And that's it. And once it's up there, you can adjust it right here. And eventually you can also enforce the HTTP, and then a certificate will be added. Now, hopefully this is going to work. There we go. We got our working team.
Well, at least one part of the demo worked.
Yeah, luckily. Okay, so you got your first team. And now, Eltjo.
Yeah, so by now you should have got your website up and running. You've selected and applied a theme, just like you would with your WordPress site. Now what? Well, now you can adjust the template to your own style, and you can go very far with that if you want. If you look at, for instance, the GoESC website or the website I just showed you in the in speed comparison, teamrge.com, you can take that very, very far. For instance, especially with the GoESC website, if you put the theme and the actual website next to each other, you wouldn't even recognize that it was using the same template if you showed them side by side. What we did is we used some of the basic components, but we also had some built some stuff ourselves. And with me, I mean predominantly Ryan. I'm just a pretty face here. So for the example here is the authors and social media part of the website that we need to adjust it. And Ryan's going to show that a little bit later on. With WordPress, for example, we could have just used a plugin for that, but it's not available in GitHub Pages at the moment. So do any of you guys have any experience with HTML and CSS? Oh, only a few. Ah, there we go. Yeah. So if you have any experience with CSS, you must have been in a position where you were almost ready with your style sheets and you just wanted to make one small adjustment and you screwed up your site completely. Well, that's the CSS hell. So, Ryan, can you show some of the things that we can do with CSS to customize your themes?
Yeah, so this is from my own experience is going to take a lot of time and you need to have a little bit of patience. But there's one single trick I at least want to show is, I'm probably you already know this, is the Eltjo one, and especially because everybody is mobile at this point, and I also read a lot of blog posts on my mobile, so you need to take into account that you have a mobile device. And yeah, as you can see here, we already screwed up with this presentation site. The team is not responsive, but here at least we have the possibility to switch between multiple devices. Yeah. So this is a nice trick, at least, to ensure that the site is looking okay on a mobile device.
Yeah, so I hope everyone's watching this presentation from a computer and on a mobile device. Yeah. So anyway. By now, you should have got your blog or website up and running. Your team is looking as sharp as ever. And you're really pretty pleased with yourself. And why shouldn't you be? But suddenly you realize, how do I get all the old content of my website over to my new website? Well, the easy answer is you have to do it manually. Type it over. Or get someone else to do it. For instance, your spouse or children that know how to type. Maybe you could pay someone.
Or your dog.
Or your dog, maybe.
Yeah,
if your dog can type, well, why not?
Yeah.
But there are also other options that you can use. For instance, if your spouse only can type or your dog can only type with 2 words per minute, that's not going to make that much headroom. So, or if you're not in a relationship at all or don't have a dog, there are other options. One of the other options is that you could use a so-called WordPress extraction tool. And you can use that to extract all the content from your WordPress style and actually import it also in your new GitHub Pages website. Unfortunately, though, our experience is that those tools don't work flawlessly. What you also have to keep in mind is that you have to transfer all of the media, so your movies, your images, pictures that you have in your website to the new site as well. And you have to change the location of all the images in the resource files that you have as well. The good news is that most new themes use Markdown as the language instead of HTML. And that makes writing posts a lot easier and much more intuitive. And the good news also is that most of the extraction tools can convert HTML to Markdown directly. Speaking about Markdown, I see that Ryan has one of our websites, one of our pages up.
Yeah, so this is the one of the blog posts at GoESC, and you can see here that we have written the entire post in Markdown. And when you convert your entire your blog and you extract everything, it's really important to validate each individual post. And it's important because you can miss some images out there, and yeah, you just need to check it. But the big benefit of Markdown is it is an easy way to write, And at the end, it will just look at like a regular website.
Yeah, but in the end, it is going to take some time to move everything over to GitHub Pages. Fortunately, Ryan done most of the work on the GoUC website, but you also had your own website, right?
Yeah,
Ryan,
so
your own personal blog. And how many pages did you have to manually type over to get it over to GitHub Pages?
I'm blogging for quite a while now, and I had around 128 posts, so it took me like days in order to get the content over.
Yeah, and you already started to get cranky after 5 pages, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's still a couple of pages that are not correctly or 100%, but yeah, I decided to live with it.
Okay, so fortunately, we also have some tips and tricks that might help working with GitHub Pages, right, Ryan?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that you can leverage, and I think this should be. So I already showed the configuration file, and in this example, we extended this configuration with some additional info. So as you can see here, we have some member objects, and basically you can use this as an object to define informations which you can use within the page itself. Now, we got a couple members here, and what we can do is using Liquid, we can iterate towards all the members. So we have a single page that will eventually show all the information of all the members of the site. So you have a single, the single configuration file that you only need to adjust. So if you go to this example, and I have to go and open it. So prepare it, Ryan. I think it's this one. In the end, it will look like this. This is just the single HTML that will iterate towards it. So once you make a commit, it will be generated, and it will take all the information from the configuration file and go to show it and generate it in a static site. Another thing that you can leverage and which might be useful are the includes. So an include is just a single HTML that you can inject at a random location. So in this case, in this example, I created an icons for the social icons, which is used in the members page. So depending on, again, on the configuration file and all the social media links and URLs you have added there, it will generate all the various icons. And this is one single location I have to edit and maintain to ensure it looks okay. And then I can just, in the members page, and in this example, I used Eltjo. You can see here, I will just include the HTML and it will be generated based again on his information. And at the end, it will look like this.
Oh, what a handsome bloke you got there.
Those are your words.
Thank you very much, Ryan.
So those are quite some handy tips and tricks that you can leverage to generate some content on the site.
Yeah, so one other good tip is that you can make your posts hidden if you want, just like you could with WordPress. Cool, yeah. And in that case, the page will be generated when you commit and push the changes, but it won't be visible. It will, however, always be visible by a direct link, and it basically functions just like WordPress. About that, one thing to keep in mind is that the websites are still statically generated pages. You can put some logic in it, but it's still static. And these pages are generated when you commit and push. And as Ryan showed you, you can do some dynamic stuff, but it won't make your site dynamic. So, for instance, on the GoUC website, we keep track of all the events that we either visit or present at. That list is dynamically generated and sorted by date, but it won't be updated until we commit the site.
I actually have here some examples. So, and we have an event date, and based on this date, it will be shown yes or no. So there's some if statement logic in there, but it's only on once you commit and change to it.
Yeah.
I need to clean this up, by the way. The old events. Okay, so let's continue.
Yeah. So that's hopefully are some tips and tricks that can help you creating and maintaining GitHub pages. So for getting the most out of GitHub pages, we use a couple of tools on a daily basis for that. The tools of the trade, if you will. Because as every job goes, you really need a good set of tools to get the job done best. So this might be some tools that you already know and love and already saw. My big number one, and it's a pet peeve of mine, please use a good IDE. Don't use Notepad. Don't use WordPad. Just use a good editor. Why don't you use Notepad and Notepad++? Well, basically, my opinion, because they suck. Sorry, but it does. Use a proper one. And there are tons of great and good IDEs out there, but our tool of choice has to be, as you already saw in the presentation that Ryan did, Visual Studio Code. Because we just love it. It has dark mode. Hey, yeah, hooray for dark mode. Barbara, it also has light mode, so don't worry there. But it also has a tons of plugins that you can use. It has a very rich plugin eco landscape that you could leverage. And talking about plugins, that is really where the power of Visual Studio Code shows. For instance, we always use a couple of plugins. I use plugins for PowerShell, for Python, but the ones we use for GitHub Pages is a Git plugin. We use a plugin for editing Markdown files. You also have a Markdown beautifier plugin. I say that's only almost mandatory. But because we almost predominantly and exclusively write in English, and neither of us are native speakers, we absolutely can't do without Grammarly, which is a lovely plugin. It has throsses. It has you can look up synonyms. It'll correct your spelling if you make mistakes. And boy, we make spelling mistakes.
It will help a lot. So there's a community plugin available that you can use within Visual Studio Code that can help you out in there. So it's a really recommended one. But there are still a couple basics, of course, you need to take into account. And one thing that we are really missing when you look at WordPress is the Yoast plugin.
Yeah.
So when you are writing a blog post and you have Yoast enabled, they will get you all kinds of hints and tricks, tips, how to improve your blog post to ensure that you are going up in the ranking of the SEO.
Yeah, that really use. Yeah, that you can use Yoast, at least in WordPress, to optimize your SEO score.
Yeah.
And that's really important because that basically determines how high up you will get in the Google rankings when people search for something. And you want to have your blog or your page or your research paper or whatever as high up possible as you can, because nobody ever looks at the second page of a Google result, right?
So
only
that's
very important.
Yeah, because I cannot find it.
No, and that's something that was very popular in WordPress, but we unfortunately haven't found any other alternative for either Visual Studio Code or for GitHub Pages, unfortunately.
So the way how we solve this is that taking a couple of principles when writing a blog post is using headers, have a great title, make sure it's of a certain length, and we provided that in a guideline. As the GoUC platform is using multiple people to write publications, we created these guidelines for everybody, at least to as a clarification, and that will really help also improving the writing of the blogs.
Yeah.
Do you have any other tips or tools?
That's basically it. Oh yeah, always use a Git client. I personally use SourceTree for that. If you're a hardcore Git fan, you can use the command line, but I'm very lazy, as I already said, so I like to use a GUI for that, and I really don't like the Git desktop. So we predominantly use SourceTree for this.
Yeah, so SourceTree is at least a nice tool, and you can also see all the individual changes. But when you have changes, you can also only state the specific line. So this is at least my primary Git tool that I use for all my my Git actions.
Yeah.
Oh, move it away. I think we're right.
Yes, you can also use Git inside of Visual Studio Code. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah.
I hate it, but it's my personal opinion. Yeah.
Okay, and that brings us to some of the pitfalls when using GitHub Pages. I was going to make a very inappropriate joke here, but I'm decided to skip that. But there are some prohibited uses for GitHub Pages.
So like OnlyFans pages.
Yeah.
I did it. Sorry.
So there are some prohibited uses. One of the prohibited uses is that GitHub, for instance, states that you cannot post or use sexually obscene content on GitHub Pages. Well, I'm not sure what qualifies for that, but basically I don't want to know. But also there are some resource limits in place that you have to take into account. For instance, GitHub Pages states that source repositories can have only have a recommended limit of 1 gigabyte. To be very honest, I have no idea what happens when you go over that limit. I have no idea. I tried Googling it, but I couldn't find it out at all. Also, published GitHub pages must not be larger than 1 gigabyte. GitHub Pages sites have a soft bandwidth limit of 100 gigabytes a month and a soft limit of 10 builds per hour. On the other hand, you are really doing something wrong if you are having more than 10 builds an hour, by the way. Also noteworthy and maybe very obvious, but your site and its contents are visible for everyone to see, right? Now, that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, but it is something you need to keep in mind. By the way, this only holds true for the free accounts, because with paid accounts, you can also have private repos. But if you use GitHub Pages as a free account, your site will be hosted on a public repo, and the contents and the website will be open for anyone to see. One of the main things that we noticed at GoEUC and working with GitHub Pages and Jekyll when we switched is that there are actually people who have no idea how to use a pull request and don't know what a commit is. And yes, people, they do exist. We learned that along the way, and it took us a lot of coaching and explaining for the people that had no prior programming or DevOps experience. And so that could be a hurdle.
The annoying thing is that when you work with people that don't blog often, you have to repeat it every time then when they write a post, because they don't do it every day. So this might be a downside to it.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's publicly available. So if you see a mistake, basically on GoEUC, you have the possibility just to correct it and contribute to the blog post. So it's really, from a community perspective, it's really nice.
Yeah, and if you're lazy, you can always just raise an issue with it. Let's have us fix it. So, Martin Woodward actually mentioned that if you go over the recommended limit, it is a guideline, and you might be throttled if you go over the limit. So that's thank you very much for that remark. So basically, in the end, we are really happy with our transition from WordPress to GitHub Pages. Yes, WordPress was easier to use, but in our opinion, in the end of the day, we think that the benefits strongly outweigh the drawbacks that it poses. So we're very happy with it.
And the final pitfall is the time and effort. When you're going to decide to transition to it, it will take some time to move all your content over, and you need to go check all the individual posts to make sure it's there. But in the end, once everything is up and running, it works really, really smoothly.
On the other hand, if you just wanted to start creating a page or a blog, why not start with GitHub Pages directly? You don't need to set up anything else. You don't have to convert anything. And as you can see, you can be up and running within 20 minutes.
Exactly.
So that actually brings us to the end of the presentation.
Yeah, so the last thing we want to say is may the force be with you. Good luck when you are going to deep dive into the GitHub Pages and convert your site. If you have any questions, of course, we can continue and open the chat. But if you have also questions after the presentation, in a couple of days, you can always reach out to us, and we're always happy to help out.
Hey, Ryan, what about your big revelation?
What revelation?
Well, that we didn't make this presentation in PowerPoint, but you guys were actually watching a GitHub Pages page the whole time.
Yeah, so this is a GitHub Pages site. So we created actually the entire presentations in GitHub Pages, which is also in my repository.
That was your moment to shine, Ryan.
Yeah,
and you
sorry,
watched it.
I really forgot. Where is it? So actually, this is the entire presentation that you just saw, and it's hosted on the GitHub Pages.
Yeah, so if you like this this theme and the website we made, you can always fork it, you can download it, you can clone it, you can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah.
You have our blessing. Okay, that brings us actually to the end of the presentations. Are there any questions? And I think someone raised their hand in the audience.
I have a question. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, can.
So this was a good presentation. I've been thinking about moving to GitHub Pages, so this is a good booster you guys provided. Thank you very much. A couple of things that I use in WordPress is the place from where my blog is getting the hit, and also the number of visible, number of posts that are visible. So do we get that kind of metrics in GitHub Pages?
You can embed Google Analytics in there. For my personal blog and also GoUC, we have a Google Analytics account to track all the audience. Yeah.
Oh, that is good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and actually we got more analytic data from the Google Analytics than we have from the plugin that we used to use from for GitHub Pages.
Yeah, definitely.
It's much better laid out, and Google Analytics also has APIs, and we like APIs. At least I do.
For sure.
So, are there any other questions? Or is everyone looking forward to Martin's session?
I think the second one, yeah.
I think it's the second one. Well, to be perfectly honest, I'm also looking forward to Martin's session.
I think if I look at the chat, you helped out a lot of people here. I do see mentions, chat's running too fast. Yeah, you can do your website in a private repository in the free version. But if you want the page to be private, you have to be a paid plan.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things of hosting it in a private repository, when you host it, you get a link that's only accessible to you. And don't be like me that you try to troubleshoot it for 10 minutes while you can't figure out why it isn't publicly visible, because it's supposed to be, and you should set it to public. So learn from my mistake, because I wasted 10 minutes on that, and probably 20 minutes, but I'm going to keep it at 10 in there.
Love it.
All right, really cool. And who's going to transfer to GitHub Pages now? We're going to start with GitHub Pages.
Actually, Eltjo needs to transfer his own blog towards GitHub Pages.
I still need to take the time to transfer my page to GitHub Pages as well. Yeah, I do.
I still need to do that one as well, I will admit. But like you said, it's lazy. And I do agree, WordPress takes a lot of effort to keep it up to date, but then to start the project to actually migrate it. So the big lesson, in my opinion, is if you're starting a blog now, start it on GitHub Pages. Don't start on WordPress.
Definitely.
I completely agree.
So really cool. And I do wonder, Ryan, is the Hello World page online now?
Yeah,
just the final thing I want to know, and I'm feeling for you because I have a similar talk like this, but with Hugo, and for me it failed before the demo, so I changed my demo. Yes, it works. I I had the exact same thing happen, but it was in a practice round, so I changed my demo to say I'm not relying on that.
So did you change anything, Ryan, or was it just a timeout?
It took some time, so.
Okay, cool.
Oh, one final question I think is a good one, because I had a lot of issues with this as well. Getting Jekyll working on Windows. Do you have some tips and tricks?
Yeah, be patient. No, and there's a couple guides, and I really recommend to Google it. So of course they have on Jekyll itself, they have some resources how to do it. But I know there are a couple blogs out there. I will Google it in the meantime for you and share it. But it can be annoying also with some security permissions on the Windows file system when trying to read the site or edit the site. And it can be a hassle, but
I think officially Jekyll is not supported on Windows itself.
Correct. Yeah. Correct.
So
Windows subsystem for Linux can be your friend some days as well, you know.
Yep.
Marcel, I tried the Windows Linux way to get it up and running on Windows. That didn't work. There is a Windows package, and that seems to work also for me a little bit better than the Windows for Linux setup. But I haven't tried it completely. But I have my first page up and running, so now your information can help.
Awesome. Cool. Ryan, Martin actually had a question as well. Can the Jekyll local site also be hosted in a container?
Yeah, I think so. I think there are containers available. That includes Jekyll. Yeah. It's actually also a way to run it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could also try Hugo.
Hugo?
Yeah, just that's what I went with after spending a complete evening struggling with Jekyll, and I think it's a personal preference, and I understand Hugo better, but just to mention it as an alternative, it also works with GitHub Pages.
Ah, cool.
All right, awesome. So thank you so much. It was a lot of fun in that talk. Really enjoyed it.